Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. I hope everyone had a lovely weekend. This is the morning show on the Monday and we have so much to get into. Obviously, we've had a bit of a break on the weekends over the last couple of weeks from shows. So it always feels like this first show on a Monday, there's so much to talk about, so much to discuss. And in some ways, I quite like it because it lets me process stuff that's happened over the weekend and then come in with a fresh mind on Monday and discuss it all with you today. So that's obviously what we will be doing. We'll be talking about Manchester United's appointment of Omar Berrada from Manchester City. We'll also be talking about a story that's just broke this morning saying that United are going to have a new training ground, apparently. Also talking a little bit about signings in the January window. I know a lot of people who watch the channel are really kind of fixated on signings and stuff. So obviously, as always, we will do all of the usual good stuff on signings. As always, I invite you to have your say on all things Manchester United in the comment section below. And if you have been enjoying the shows, do me one small favour, smash a like, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost any money and it really helps this channel grow. So please do that and let's get straight on into it. So I think the best place to probably start the show is obviously the appointment of Omar Berrada. Now, I know for some people they'll say, oh, this happened on Saturday, why are we talking about this? But as I said, obviously we've not been doing shows on the weekend at the moment just to have a bit of a break from screen time. So obviously, let's talk a little bit about Omar Berrada coming in confirmed as the next Manchester United CEO. So for anybody who doesn't know who Omar Berrada is, I assume you all do by this point. I'll be honest with you guys, before Saturday's announcement, I'd never heard of him. But that doesn't mean he's not good. Obviously, he's been at Man City as the chief operations officer for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years. He's also been heavily involved in Girona, who are currently sat top of La Liga. He's been involved in New York City FC, or is involved in these clubs at the moment, because obviously Man City own lots of clubs, don't they? The City Group, it's called. They've got Girona, they've got New York City, they've got a couple of other teams as well. And you know what? Girona are absolutely on fire at the moment. They're sat top of La Liga. They just beat Sevilla 5-1 on the weekend. And you know what? All of this is to do with Omar Berrada because he is involved in everything. He's not just involved with Man City. He's not exclusively on Man City. He does all of the clubs in the City Group. And for them to be able to, have Girona, a club which, let's be honest, probably 5 to 10 years ago were probably a mid-table to relegation, level team. To have them sat at the top of La Liga, they're currently 8 points ahead of Barcelona, and they are currently 14 points ahead of Atletico Madrid, playing some unbelievable football, absolutely thrashing teams, scoring so many goals, and a lot of that is all to do with this Omar Berrada guy. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Omar Berrada. Are you excited about his appointment? Do you think it's a good appointment? I'll give you the pros and cons, in my opinion, okay? But I want you guys to get in the comment section, get in the live chat. Let me know how happy you are with the Omar Berrada appointment. Obviously, before he worked for the City Group, he was at Barcelona as well. I mean, this guy has been around and he has succeeded everywhere he's gone, to be completely honest with you. Now, the one thing I want to make very, very clear here, right, is that the job he did at Man City is not the same job that he's doing now at Man United, right? He was the chief operations officer at Man City, which is one level down from the job that he's going to have at Man United. So at Man United, he's going to be the CEO, which is ultimately the top job. Everybody reports to him, the manager, the director of sport, the head of recruitment. He's as high as you can get before it gets to the owners. Whereas at Man City, he was one level below that. But it's pretty difficult to not speak positively about this guy. When you look at the players that Man City have brought in, when you look at their youth academy, Man City sell players that you've never even heard of from their youth academy for 20 million, like the goalkeeper who went to Burnley. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but they sold a goalkeeper to Burnley a couple of seasons ago for like 20 million plus, whereas we're out here struggling to get more than 10 million for Fred, or we're out here struggling to get, what did we get for Elanga? Like 14 million? And he's, putting in ridiculous stats for Nottingham Forest. I think Dan James was our biggest transfer sale in like the last 10 years or something. And that was like 20 million. I mean, that's mad, isn't it? That in the last, maybe not in the last 10 years, but in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, obviously people like Di Maria, Lukaku, there's names like that, but those were players we bought and then sold for a massive loss, So it's not really the same kind of conversation. I'm talking about bringing players into the club for a good price, developing them, and then selling them for more. Like, United don't do that. And genuinely, the only example I can think of where we bought a player, he played for a couple of seasons, and then we sold him for more was Dan James. I think we bought him for about 12 million, and we sold him for like 20 million. But other than that, like, we just simply don't do it. And I think that's a job that Omar Berrada coming in will be very, very fixated on, to bring in players that are exciting, but for good amounts of money. Because at the moment we're getting our pants pulled down, to be completely honest with you guys. We've had our pants pulled down for far too long. John Murtagh, right? Obviously, and Richard Arnold, the two previous CEO. Richard Arnold was the CEO, and John Murtagh was the director of football. Anybody who thinks or agrees to spend 100 million euros on Antony should be sacked immediately. I mean, on what planet are they living on that they thought that they thought that Antony was worth 100 million euros? I mean, it's absolutely sickening, and I'm so happy that there is a new ownership, but there is also this new team underneath that ownership. Now, I know the ownership is only 25%, and I know people will say, oh, they're keeping the Glazers and all the rest of it, but for all of you who are still, I want Qatar. When Qatar were going to come in, we were being told that bloody Rio Ferdinand was going to be the director of football. I mean, maybe not quite to that extent, but under Qatar, it was very much like Rio Ferdinand will have some sort of role. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will have some sort of role. If you go back and search in the summer, there are stories saying that Sheikh Jassim wants to bring back Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in some capacity. There are stories saying that, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand would be involved in the club in some capacity. And you know what? I don't want that, to be honest. They're legends of the club, but they know nothing about the actual. Maybe Gary Neville's an exception. Obviously, he runs a football club now. But still, I wouldn't want Gary Neville involved in Manchester United, to be completely honest with you. I want people who are the best in class. And it's absolutely impossible for me to deny that Omar Berrada is the best in class. He's levels above Jean-Claude Blanc, in my opinion. Like, Jean-Claude Blanc is good, and we still have Jean-Claude Blanc on our team, but he's going to remain as the Ineos CEO, who will look over everything from an Ineos side. So I'm really, really happy about this appointment. On the weekend, I was in a bit of shock, to be honest with you. I mean, let's just have this as one example, right? Man City bought Jeremy Doku, who, in my opinion, has been unbelievable for Man City this season. He's got 7 goals and assists in 12 games this season. He's been really, really good. Across the whole season, right? Jeremy Doku is averaging a goal or an assist every other game. Antony hasn't got a goal or an assist in any game. I mean, that just sums it up for me, right? Jeremy Doku, he's younger than Antony as well. They bought him for 60 million euros in the summer, off the back of an unbelievable season at Anderlecht. We went and spent 100 million euros on Antony. And I think even 60 million sounded like quite a lot for Jeremy Doku. There was people questioning it and stuff. But it's just a clear example of this guy having his head screwed on. And welcome everybody who's just joined the chat, by the way. I hope everyone is good. I will read out some of your comments and stuff in a bit. So if you have anything you want to ask, if you have an opinion you want to put in, get in the comment section now. And please do make sure to smash a like, everybody. The more people that like the video, the more people YouTube will show the video to. So obviously, it doesn't cost any money. Let's try and get to 100 likes on today's video. And do subscribe as well. Why not? Let's have a look at what people are saying in the chat quickly. Let me know what you guys think about Omar Berrada. I mean, it's being compared to when, I think it was it 2003? I'm trying to remember, but Chelsea in 2003, wasn't it? They got Manchester United CEO. It was kind of just after Abramovich came in, and he got our CEO, didn't he? He took him from us, and this is being compared to that. It's just such a power move, and it really, really did cause ripples around, the football world at that time. So I'm really happy about this. The only thing I will say is this, right? And there's always got to be a positive and a negative to everything. Nothing is ever 100%. Now, some stories are saying that Omar Berrada had nothing to do with the alleged financial fair play issues. Has nothing to do with the 115 charges and all the rest of it. But then you have other people saying this morning, I was watching, I think it was Henry Winter I think he's from The Telegraph, and he was saying that apparently Omar Berrada is one of the key witnesses for Man City in the trial, saying that ultimately they haven't done anything wrong. So that's the only bit that makes me a little bit anxious. If I'm being honest, we can't just say everything's 100% all the time, because I think that's just not how, you can't live life like that. You have to, there's positives and negatives to everything. The positives at the moment absolutely outweigh the negatives. You're going from Richard Arnold, who, let's be honest, was not a football person, to Omar Berrada, who's built Man City, Girona, has worked at Barcelona and all the rest of it. You're going from Richard Arnold to this. Like, obviously that's great, but this whole 115 charges thing does worry me a little bit. We just have to believe that, Ineos, the Glazers, whoever it is, have done their due diligence, and they know for a 150% fact that he's got no involvement in those alleged charges. Because imagine if this, right? Again, I don't want to be negative. I'm just giving my honest opinion, as I encourage you guys to do. But imagine if City do get charged, right? And then it comes out that he was somehow involved in, like, what does that mean for Manchester United? Obviously, this is me thinking further ahead. It might be fine. Man City will probably get away with it because they get away with everything. So in hindsight, I think it will be all right. But that's the only bit that maybe kind of muddies the water a little bit around this whole thing, that you have to assume that he would know, surely. He was the chief operations, chief operations officer at Man City. They've got 115 charges against them. Like, surely he would know or have some knowledge of the things that they allegedly had done, if that was his job, which is the second highest job in a business. CEO is the top officer at the top role, and then COO is the second highest role. So that's the only bit that worries me a little bit, that we're genuinely led to believe that a person working within a company who is in the second highest role of power in that organization doesn't know of these alleged things that have happened that have now resulted in 115 charges. I mean, I don't know. I know people were saying the same about Dan Ashworth. They were saying, I don't want Dan Ashworth because, he bought Tonali, and Tonali has a gambling addiction, and he didn't know that. And there's all these things that you've got to kind of wade through, and I don't know. I think it's, it's all hearsay at the moment. For me personally, I think it's a great appointment. I'm excited about it, but I'm always going to have that in the back of my head, Lumen says, Kieran, do you now agree with me? The Glazers were never a problem, but the people running the club were. I mean, you've kind of contradicted yourself there, my friend. The Glazers were running the club. It was the Glazers' job to appoint John Murtagh, Richard Arnold, Ed Woodward. So you can only point the finger at the people who've appointed them. So Ineos haven't even been, it hasn't even been fully confirmed that Ineos have a 25% stake. But within a month of it being announced, we already have a new CEO, don't we? And that's because of Jim Ratcliffe and because of Ineos. Like, don't give the Glazers any credit here. None of what's happening at the moment has anything to do with the Glazers, because the Glazers have handed over all of the sporting side to Ineos. So these decisions are being made by Ineos. Ineos will negotiate with someone like Omar Berrada. Apparently that was happening since December. I was reading a story this morning that apparently Jim Ratcliffe was negotiating with Omar Berrada back in December. He managed to convince him to come, and then he took the deal, if you like, to the Glazers, who then sign off on it. That's how it will work on the sporting side of things now, right? Ineos will make the decisions. They'll go to the Glazers. They'll say, look, we've got this CEO. He's done this, this, and this. Can we confirm? And the Glazers will say yes. So I think we can't let the Glazers off and say, oh, well, it was the people that they appointed's fault, because at the end of the day, the Glazers appointed them. The Glazers kept them in their positions for far too long. The Glazers didn't realise that Ed Woodward, John Murtagh and Richard Arnold were not the best in class. The Glazers didn't realise that this is just an example, but, making Darren Fletcher the head of development, who's never had a job other than playing as a footballer in his whole career, like, it was never very clever. Let's see what else people are saying. Al says Chelsea were successful not because of their CEO, but because of Roman Abramovich's unlimited money. Money is very, very important. The thing is, though, mate, right? I agree with you to some extent, but I actually think that because of financial fair play now, unless you're going to cheat, like Man City have allegedly done, I don't think it's as simple as bring Qatar in and we'll spend $1 billion and we'll win the league next season, because you can't do that anymore. You've seen it with Newcastle, right? This is a prime example. So I actually think when you boil it down now, if it was 2 or 3 years ago, right, when the financial fair play rules were less strict, bring Qatar in, spend half a billion in one window, like Todd Bowley did at Chelsea, do all these dodgy contracts over 10 years, which have now been banned as well. You actually can't do that anymore. So Newcastle is a prime example. They've got the richest owners in world football. They spent a load of money, and their plan was, let's get into the Champions League. Once we're in the Champions League, we'll stay in the Champions League and we'll be fine. Okay? Newcastle, I know this isn't a Newcastle channel, but this is a really good point just to make to those of you who are like, we need unlimited money. Newcastle have unlimited money. They're in really bad financial difficulties now because they're out of the Champions League. They're not going to finish 4th. And now, this morning, it's being reported that Almiron's going to move to Saudi. Trippier's on the brink of moving to Bayern. They're about to sell 2 of their best first-team players. Not because they're not good enough, because they need money. They're desperate for money now because they've spent too much and they need to comply with financial fair play. So it's easy to sit there and say, oh, if Qatar came in, we would have been able to spend $500 million in one window. We'd have Mbappe, we'd have Messi, Neymar, like all of these ridiculous people. That wouldn't have happened because we still would have had to have stayed within financial fair play. And the flip side of that is that if you don't stick within financial fair play and you do what Man City have done and you try and bend the books a little bit and say that Qatar Airways are going to sponsor us for £5 billion a season, you will get found out now because, you know, the Premier League is much, much more strict than it was before. So in some ways, I actually think when you boil it down, what we have now is maybe better in some ways because, like, Jim Ratcliffe, yes, he doesn't own 100% of the club, but the Glazers never wanted to sell 100% of the club. It was a false dream. And that is why Qatar are apparently going to sue the Glazers because Qatar reportedly offered what the Glazers' asking price was. They showed them the proof of funds and then the Glazers rejected it. And then the Glazers go to the Securities and Commissions in America and they publish a statement saying that Qatar didn't offer what we wanted and they didn't show us proof of funds. So apparently Qatar are now going to sue the Glazers. And you know what? Like, how can the Glazers genuinely put out that Qatar wouldn't have the money? I mean, all you have to do is do one quick Google search, right? We know that the bid from Sheikh Jassim was backed by Qatar. Qatar spent $220 billion for the World Cup. $220 billion. And the Glazers are trying to tell us that they didn't have $5 or $6 billion to pay for the club. It's complete rubbish. So what I'm trying to make the point here is, guys, you can have unlimited money, but you won't be able to spend it now. The rules have changed. And there's people saying that I don't like this. I want the biggest players to play in the Premier League. Like, no club in the Premier League will probably be able to get Mbappe this season because the wage demands will be so high. And you know, you run the risk of financial fair play issues and all the rest of it. That this is the world we live in now. Let's have a look. Richie says, where is the source that claims Qatar is suing the Glazers? If you just type it in on Google, Qatar suing Glazers. What they're doing is they want it says that they want the information that the Glazers provided to the SEC, which is obviously like the exchange commissions in America that kind of looks over the stock exchange and all the rest of it. They want to change what the Glazers wrote about Qatar, which was ultimately that they didn't have any money. They didn't prove that they had money. They didn't give us the asking price. And supposedly it says they're going to take them to court because they want it changed. They want it rectified. They want it to say the correct thing, which was that they did offer the right amount of money. They did provide proof of funds, but the Glazers decided they didn't want to sell. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Omar Berrada. I think overall it's very, very positive. I think that, you know, him, Dan Ashworth as the sporting director, hopefully, Paul Mitchell as the head of recruitment. Like, I honestly don't think I could be more happy with that as our structure, genuinely. Like, there isn't anybody in world football I would swap for any of those people at this point. I think Paul Mitchell is incredible. I think Dan Ashworth is done incredible at Brighton and has done well at Newcastle. And I think that this Omar Berrada guy, from a CEO perspective, I think it is unbelievable. And then when you think that you've also got Jean-Claude Blanc as the kind of Ineos CEO overseeing things, you've got Sir Dave Brailsford as the head of performance. Like, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I genuinely do think that if all of these appointments are made and we have Dan Ashworth, we have Paul Mitchell, and we have this team, I think it will set us up to succeed in the future. It doesn't mean that we will succeed, but I think will give us the best possible chance. Obviously, we're a long, long way away from the other top clubs. I mean, you look at Liverpool going and beating, was it 4-0 yesterday or 5-0 against Bournemouth? We lost 3-0 to Bournemouth at home. Like, we are a long way away from these other teams. And even Liverpool fans will be like, oh, I'm not sure if we've got enough to win the league, blah, blah, blah. You know, they're not even convinced they're going to win the league. And they've just gone and beaten Bournemouth, who are doing well this season, 4 or 5-0. And we lose 3-0 at home to Bournemouth. So, like, we are levels behind them, you know. We are, in my opinion, probably 2 or 3 years away of 90% success rate transfer windows to kind of be there. Everybody in the chat seems pretty happy about Omar. Yeah, I'm happy with Omar, mate. I think it's a great appointment. I really, really am. Scott says, I thought Jim Ratcliffe bought the 25%, not Ineos. It is a little bit confusing because there was a new company made, wasn't there, to buy the 25% shares. And I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is the kind of the top director in that company. So it wasn't. Let me have a look. Let me just double check, because it was called something relating to Cantona, wasn't it? What company bought 25? I can't remember what it's called though, off the top of my head. Let's have a look. If anybody knows in the chat, let me know. But I know that they made a new company to buy the shares. I feel like it had some sort of reference to either Cantona or it's somebody. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure someone will tell me in the chat now. Nobody's telling me. All right. If anybody knows, let me know. Right, let's talk about the new training ground. Again, this may or may not happen. But the story is today is that Man United are actively looking for new land in and around Manchester to build a new training ground. They're aware of how far behind their training facilities are, which is, again, you know, you had Cristiano Ronaldo coming back to the club after, what was it, eight years away, coming back saying that the gym equipment was the same, saying that, I mean, I don't want to single out like the staff and stuff because obviously, you know, people have livelihoods and stuff, but he was saying like, you know, the chefs are the same, like nothing, you know, the performance people are the same, like nothing's changed, nothing's improved. The swimming pool, like the tiles were all chipped, and like that isn't good enough for a club of Man United's size. So I think a new training facility is almost as important as new players, to be completely honest with you, because like, what's the saying? What's the saying they say? I can't remember, but you have to have elite facilities at your disposal to be able to get elite performance, you know? Like, if you didn't need that, you could just say to the players, go and train in the local park. Obviously, that's me being a bit stupid, but you get what I'm saying here. Like, it's so important, the tools you give these players and the tools you give these managers and these coaches to be able to succeed with a football club. And we all know for a fact that Carrington is way behind the power curve at the moment. You know, you hear the stories of Jude Bellingham going there before he went to Dortmund, being shown around by Sir Alex Ferguson, and then him choosing to go to Dortmund. I mean, like, that just sums it up for me. You know, we're not attracting these big names anymore. The only players that want to come are the ones that are being overpaid. There you go. Michael says it's called the Trawler Group. That's the one. Yeah, there you go. So it's not Ineos. It's called the Trawler Group. That's who's bought the 25% shares. Joshua says, Kieran, do you think we could start a group like City Football Group due to Omar Berrada being the chief executive of the City Group? I mean, we technically already kind of have, haven't we? Because Jim Ratcliffe obviously owns Nice. He owns Lausanne, which is a Swiss club. I think he might own another club as well. So if Jim Ratcliffe eventually has 100% of Manchester United, then yeah, we would probably have some sort of group which would own Man United, Nice, the Swiss club that he owns, and I think he owns another one in Australia as well, potentially. Like, so we are kind of moving into that realm, yeah. Pig Teat says, I'm optimistic for the new appointments, but still Glazers out. Yeah, of course, mate. I'm not sat here saying keep the Glazers forever. Like, definitely not. Fred says, will the new appointments be given a free rein from the Glazers? Well, from what my understanding is right. Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, Paul Mitchell, Jean-Claude Blanc, like all of these people will work on the sporting side, but they will have to then get sign off from the Glazers. But I don't see why the Glazers would say no to anything. You know, like why would they? They've brought these people in to run the football side. They're not going to be like, oh no, we don't want to buy that player. We don't like that player. Like that would just be stupid. So I think that will have been, ironed out in all of the negotiations. That Ineos make the decisions. They go to the Glazers just for sign off, just for the final sign off. That's all. And it will be, have you stuck within the budget? Yes. Those types of things. If they wanted to buy a player for 400 million and the Glazers said that we only have 150 million, then obviously the Glazers would say no. But generally, I think they'll get on with it. Lumen says, why are you Glazers out, even though they've given us Jim Ratcliffe? Well, I mean, I'm Glazers out because they've taken billions and billions of pounds out of this football club over the last 18 years. I'm Glazers out because over the last 18 years, they've put this club in the position we are now. They recruited people who were incompetent, Ed Woodward, John Murtaugh, Richard Arnold, to name a few. They've let the club completely rot. The stadium's falling down. The training facilities are behind the rest. I'm the Glazers out because I don't want them to reap the rewards anymore. I don't want them to benefit from owning Manchester United. I don't want to have their name associated with Manchester United. I don't care whether they brought in Sir Jim Ratcliffe, to be honest with you. Like, that doesn't change anything for me. They have to go. Whether that's Jim Ratcliffe with 100% ownership eventually, hopefully it is. I think if that can happen, then great, let's do it. But the Glazers are never going to win me over. Even if we won the league for the next 10 years in a row, I would still say the same things about the Glazers. It changes nothing. I said this on the show in the summer. The only way that I could ever potentially even come close to forgiving the Glazers was if they gave back all of the money that they've pretty much stole from us, effectively. No other club in world football takes dividends, or in England, let's say. I know in the Premier League, no other Premier League football clubs takes dividends. It's only the Glazers. If they were to give back all of their money that they've taken or stolen from us effectively, if they were to then invest X amount of their own money, which they're never going to do, I don't know. My opinion's not going to change. Like, the Glazers are the Glazers. They're going to stay the same. I'm always going to have that same feeling towards them. I don't know. People are saying, is he joking or something? I'm not sure, to be honest. Let's talk a little bit about the new striker then. I'll come back to the chat in a minute. Let's talk a bit about Choupo-Moting. Apparently there's no negotiations at the moment between United and Choupo-Moting. There's zero negotiations. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't want Choupo-Moting. I would much rather at this point just see what Erik ten Hag can do with the current squad we have. People are always, the Ten Hag outers will say, he spent 400 million, he spent 400 million. And I agree, he has spent a lot of money. So let's see what he can do with this squad. Mason Mount's going to be back, Casemiro's going to be back, Luke Shaw, Martinez. He's going to have his full strength squad within the next 2 weeks. Let's see what he can do between now and the end of the season. Let's not confuse things by bringing in loan signings and bringing in random people who are maybe going to dilute the situation here, and we'll say, oh, well, he only got Choupo-Moting in the January window. Like, you can already hear those excuses being made. Oh, he should have got Harry Kane in the summer. Oh, he should have got Victor Osimhen in January. Like, obviously it's good to have an opinion, but you've got to be realistic here, okay? I would much rather see what Erik ten Hag can do with our squad. Our best squad available. Hopefully we go and win the FA Cup. Hopefully we push up the table a bit and maybe we finish 5th or 6th and have some sort of European football. I would much rather see that and see Rasmus Højlund get to play every single game. I know he's young, but if you're good enough, you're good enough to play. I think this whole thing of, Rasmus Højlund should play one game and then not play the next game, I just think that's stupid. I honestly do. Like, it's not like he's a 15-year-old who shouldn't be playing at this level. He's 20. I think he's 21 this year. Like, he's not that young. Like, imagine think about it like this, right? Let's just completely squash that argument on its head. Jude Bellingham, I would say, is probably the best midfielder in the world at the moment. Would you agree? He's 20. He plays every single game for Real Madrid without fail, every single Champions League game, and he plays every single game for England. So for us to say Rasmus Højlund should only play one game and then rest the next game, I just think it's stupid. He's 21 in like 2 weeks. He's older than Jude Bellingham. I'm just having a look now. He'll be 21 in 2 weeks, and I think that he should be given all of the opportunity. Richie says, you're talking crap. The Glazers haven't stole anything. They've taken money from this club. They've put this club into debt. How can you not think that it's not stealing, but it feels like it's stealing. If no other football club in the Premier League takes dividends, if no other football club in the Premier League leverages the buyout of the club on debt, how is that not stealing? It's not the same as everybody else. It feels like stealing. They're stealing the money from this football club that this football club has generated, not because of them. Joshua says, I don't want us to sign any more Ajax players. Yeah, I mean, that's the other story this morning, that apparently United are going to go for Brian Broby in the summer. I don't want Brian Broby at Man United. I really, really don't. And he just doesn't excite me. I'm sorry. Like, we've already got a young development striker in Rasmus Højlund. I don't want another one in Brian Broby personally. Like, not for me. I honestly, if I had to pick one striker at the moment, I would genuinely go and get Gonzalo Ramos from. I would genuinely go and get Gonzalo Ramos, because we know that he has a release clause, 60 million euros. We know that PSG don't want to keep him. PSG have got Kolo Muani as well. Like, so if people say, oh, he's a PSG flop, PSG have got some really, really good strikers in their team, whereas, we don't. And we know that Gonzalo Ramos is available for 60 million euros release clause in the summer. So yeah, I would personally go and get him. I think Gonzalo Ramos and Rasmus Højlund as two strikers would be unbelievable. And for 60 million euros, that's about what, 50 million pound, 55 million pound. I would go and do that personally. Like, Victor Osimhen isn't coming. Benjamin Sesko's another name we've been linked to this morning. Yeah, let's tell you what, guys. Let's do a poll really, really quickly. Let's do a poll. Everybody smash a like on the video quickly and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The question's going to be this: what striker do you want in the summer? If you're watching this back on repeat, you can let me know in the comment section. So we'll do Brian Broby. It's Broby, isn't it? Brian Broby, Gonzalo Ramos, Benjamin Sesko, and who else have we got? Let's do. I mean, we're not going to get Evan Ferguson. So other. All right, let's do a little poll quickly before we end the video. So the question is, for anybody watching back on repeat, you got four options. These are all players we've been linked to: Brian Broby, Gonzalo Ramos, or Benjamin Sesko. And if you don't want any of those three, let me know in the comment section why you don't want them, and let me know who you want instead. Al says Santiago Jimenez. Yeah, I mean, Santiago Jimenez would be a good option. He'll go somewhere. Java says, using Bellingham as the norm is a bit unusual, especially when comparing him with Højlund. Not many 20-year-olds get regular play in a top league every week. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the thing for me is, right, if you bought Rasmus Højlund for 5 million and he was a backup striker, then obviously, yeah, you rotate him. We've spent so much money on Rasmus Højlund, right? We spent 73 million euros on Rasmus Højlund. He's got 2 goals in the Premier League this season in 16 games. And I think it's the same in any job or any form of life. If you want to learn a new language, right? If you said to me, I'm going to do my French lessons this week, and then next week I won't do it. And then the week after I'll do it, and then the next week. This is just an example, okay? Or maybe this is a stupid example, but the point I'm trying to make here is, obviously I don't want him to get injured, but we're only playing 1 game a week. If we were in the Champions League, the League Cup, then obviously, yes, great, go and bring in Choupo-Moting. You can play Choupo-Moting in the League Cup. You can play Choupo-Moting in Premier League games that we think are winnable. We're going to be playing 1 game a week for the next 6 months. If people are telling me that Rasmus Højlund is unable to play 1 game a week at the age of 20, then that's concerning. As I just said, Jude Bellingham is playing probably 2 or 3 times a week. Use another player as an example if you want, instead of Jude Bellingham. I don't think age is a thing. I don't. Like, you should be able to play 1 game a week as a professional athlete at 20 years of age. And I don't think we should have to bring in Choupo-Moting as a backup because he's unable to play every single week. Like, I just think that's a bit... Yeah, that's just my opinion. I want him to get lots of opportunities. There's absolutely zero expectations. There's absolutely zero expectations for Rasmus Højlund this season, whereas next season people will be saying he needs to get 20 goals. And is he going to do that if he's not been playing much? I don't think so. Ivo says PSG just bought Gonzalo Ramos. Now they want to offload him. He's a flop. They haven't actually bought him, mate. They have loaned him. So there's a loan. The deal with Gonzalo Ramos is that he's on loan from Benfica to PSG. And there's an option to buy in the summer for 65 million euros or 60 million euros, I think it is. So PSG haven't actually technically bought Gonzalo Ramos yet. I mean, if you're calling Gonzalo Ramos a flop, right, which is what somebody's just said in the chat, does that mean that Rasmus Højlund's a flop as well? Then, yeah. Rasmus Højlund's got 2 goals in 16 games in the Premier League. And Gonzalo Ramos has got 3 goals in 13 games. So Gonzalo Ramos has got 1 more goal than Rasmus Højlund in 3 less games. Does that mean he's a flop? Are we calling Rasmus Højlund a flop as well? I think it's a little bit unfair, to say Gonzalo Ramos is a flop because he scored more goals than Rasmus Højlund in less games, but Rasmus Højlund isn't a flop. That doesn't really add up to me. Somebody in the chat saying, I want Sesko. Al says, Santiago Jimenez has scored 19 league goals plus 2 goals in the Champions League. He won't find a better striker in his 22 years of age. Yeah, he's a good option, to be fair. I don't know why I didn't include him in the poll. Lumen says, Kieran, if Carrington is so below standards, then do you trust our medical department to be up to standards? They can't even keep players fit. Mate, everything needs to change behind the scenes. Everything needs to change. Everything. The sport, the fitness people. And again, I don't want to, I feel bad saying it, but at the end of the day, if Ineos know what they're doing, that's what they'll do. They'll get rid of these people who've been here for too long. It's such a complacent atmosphere at Man United where average is accepted. Not by the fans. We want more, but within the actual club, prior to Ineos coming in, I think they need to change a lot. Yeah, is my point. Ivo says Rasmus Højlund is worse than Gonzalo Ramos. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, and I'm not going to contradict myself because you can go back and see. But in the summer, I genuinely thought Gonzalo Ramos was a better signing than Rasmus Højlund. When the option was out there between the two, I thought Gonzalo Ramos for, I think it was 60 million euros or 60 million pounds was better, purely just because he'd scored more goals from what I'd seen more of him, and he excited me more. I'm happy with Rasmus Højlund, but I'm not going to sit here and say Rasmus Højlund was my number one option. I think my number one option was Kane. Then it was probably Osimhen. Obviously those two were never going to happen. Then it was Gonzalo Ramos. Then it was Rasmus Højlund. For me, Rasmus Højlund was always someone we had as well as someone else. But that someone else can't be cheer promoting. And because we've invested so much money in him now, we need to, put all of our love, energy, and trust into that player. What else have we got? Pig Teat says we need to sign some wingers. Mate, we need to sign probably I honestly think we need as many as 10 players. The only people I would really, really say definitely should stay in the first team at this point is Martinez. Kobe Mainu. I like Kobe Mainu, obviously, but I think you need another good midfielder as well as him. Other than those two, even Rasmus Højlund, I like him a lot, but if someone said to me, you can sign Victor Osimhen, I would start Victor Osimhen every single game over Rasmus Højlund, without a shadow of a doubt. He hasn't, again, I don't want to criticise him, but he hasn't, he hasn't lit the league up, has he, at this point? But obviously, what do you really expect? He doesn't get any opportunities and all the rest of it. So there's two sides to every kind of conversation, The point I'm trying to make is I don't think any of these players are really untouchable, to be honest. I don't. I think a lot of them are playing for their futures. When you look at the people like McTominay, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, maybe even Luke Shaw, he's 30, he's injury prone, Marcus Rashford, Bruno, all of these players are good players, don't get me wrong, and I like them, but are they going to be part of this new style of play that we're going to have with all of these new people behind the scenes? I don't know, and they are playing for their futures. James is saying Erik ten Hag out. I have one final question before we end the video, actually, which you can all let me know in the comment section. Do you think Erik ten Hag will be given the time and the trust past this season? Let me know what you think. Somebody says, Kieran, you have two options. Keep Martial or give him away for free. I mean, to be honest with you, mate, both of them are the same because he's not probably going to play any games between now and the end of the year. I would probably let him go for nothing. Pay off his wages and let him go. Yeah. Joshua says we need to get our scouting network in ASAP to start searching for players that will improve the positions we need to improve on. Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Bjorn says, is De Ligt still on the table? He played well in the game yesterday for Bayern, which they lost, not his fault, and he looked decent. Yeah, well, from what I'm hearing, De Ligt is the number one target in the centre-back position, which I think will cause some upset in the fan base, I imagine. A lot of people obviously want Jean-Claire Todibo. I think we need two centre-backs, personally. I would let go of Varane, not because he's not good enough, but because he's on 350 grand a week. I wouldn't sell him now. I'd sell him in the summer, definitely. I'd sell Casemiro. Like, we're in such a bad situation financially that we need to get rid of, like, the Sanchos, the Rashfords, probably. I mean, realistically, if we want to rebuild properly, you probably do need to get rid of those types of players who are on crazy wages. Now, just to be very, very clear, I'm not saying Rashford's a bad player. I like Rashford. I'm just saying that if we want to try and move forward as a club, like, we need to bring our wage bill down and we need to start from fresh with a really, really strict wage structure. And you can't do that when Marcus Rashford's there on 350 grand a week, scoring like one goal in the Premier League. And then so say you go and try and sign somebody, right? Say in the summer, Man United go and try and sign Victor Osimhen, just as an example. Victor Osimhen's going to say, I want more than Marcus Rashford. I want 400 grand a week. And then you're stuck in this cycle where you've got all of these players on crazy wages and the cycle just repeats. Welcome to Bot, who has just joined the Members Club. Hope you're doing well, mate. If you do want to join the Members Club, anybody who is not a member already, I'm going to put a link in the chat. It's still only 99p at the moment. So if you are in a position to support the channel, please do join the Members Club. I've just dropped a link in the chat. I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. I usually only do about 20 minutes, but I know some people want me to do slightly longer ones. So I will try and do some longer ones sometimes. You know, when there's people putting in questions and stuff, I am happy to interact and, you know, to have a proper conversation. But I will be back live later on today at about 6 p.m. UK time. Have a good day, everybody. Hope everybody is safe in this storm that's going on in the UK at the moment. And yeah, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and I'll speak to you all at about 6 o'clock this evening. Have a good day, everybody.